Larry Holmes was never supposed to be here. At 52 years old, long removed from championship glory, the former heavyweight king stepped back into the ring carrying something far heavier than Glove's legacy. Across from him stood Butterbean Esch, a walking contradiction to everything Holmes represented. Butterbean was not a craftsman. He was a spectacle, a short, massive wrecking ball built on intimidation and explosive knockout power. He didn't need rounds. He needed moments. And all it would take was one mistake from an aging legend. This wasn't a fight made for rankings or titles. It was a curiosity fight, the kind that pulls viewers in because deep down, everyone wants to know if chaos can finally catch up to greatness. Holmes understood the danger immediately. Butterbean's entire career was built on early destruction, overwhelming opponents before skill could even matter. Holmes, on the other hand, had survived generations of killers with nothing but timing, intelligence, and one of the most educated jabs in boxing history. This fight wasn't about proving he was still the best. It was about proving he was still smarter. As the bell rang, the contrast was stark. Butterbean advanced like a storm, heavy feet pounding forward with bad intentions. Holmes moved lightly, circling, measuring, refusing to give the crowd what it wanted, a firefight. From the opening seconds, it became clear. If this turned into chaos, Holmes would not survive. But if it stayed technical, Butterbean would slowly unravel. From the early rounds, Larry Holmes treated the ring like a chessboard. Every step backward was intentional. Every jab was placed not to hurt, but to interrupt. Butterbean swung with force that could end the night instantly, but Holmes never stood still long enough to be found. The jab snapped out again and again, not fast, not flashy, but precise. Each one served a purpose: break rhythm, disrupt timing, remind Butterbean that distance was not negotiable. This was not a showcase of athleticism. Holmes' legs weren't what they used to be. The danger was real and everyone could feel it. One misstep, one moment too long in range, one lapse in concentration. Butterbean didn't care about scorecards or rounds. He was hunting an ending, and every time Holmes pivoted away, frustration built. The crowd roared whenever Butterbean landed anything, even glancing shots, because they knew what those punches represented: potential, threat, finality. But Holmes never panicked. He understood something Butterbean never fully grasped. Pressure without control creates openings. As Butterbean loaded up, Holmes slid out. As Butterbean rushed forward, Holmes touched him with the jab and reset the distance. The fight slowly became uncomfortable for the puncher. Longer than expected, harder than planned. The longer it went, the more dangerous it became, not for Holmes, but for Butterbean's confidence. Because when knockout power doesn't work immediately, doubt creeps in. And doubt is deadly for a fighter who relies on explosion rather than adjustment. By the middle rounds, the fight took a psychological turn. Butterbean was no longer cutting off the ring he was chasing. His punches grew wider, his balance less stable. The harder he tried to force the finish, the more predictable he became. Holmes saw it all unfolding in real time. This is where experience lives, not in reflexes, but in recognition. Holmes didn't try to dominate, he managed. He stayed just far enough away to make Butterbean miss, then touched him with short rights and jabs that scored without inviting danger. Every clean shot from Holmes felt like an insult to Butterbean's game plan. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be violent. Instead, it was slow, frustrating, and exhausting. Butterbean began gambling, stepping in without setup, throwing the right hand without disguise. That's when Holmes punished him, not with power, but with timing. Each counter reinforced the same message: you are late, you are reaching, and you are not in control. The crowd could sense it too. The early excitement gave way to tension. Everyone waited for the inevitable bomb that could change everything, but it never came. Holmes refused to give it to him. He understood the truth of heavyweight boxing better than anyone. Survival is a skill, and against a man like Butterbean, survival was victory. As the rounds wore on, Butterbean entered territory he had never truly explored: deep water. His career was built on short fights, early knockouts, quick chaos. Now he was being asked to think, to adjust, to pace himself, and that was never his world. Holmes, meanwhile, looked calm, not dominant. Calm. He knew he was winning the real battle, not the one on the scorecards, but the one inside Butterbean's head. The desperation began to show. Butterbean pressed harder, crowding, swinging in flurries that lacked structure. Holmes absorbed what he had to, blocked what he could, and moved when it mattered most. There were moments of danger, moments where the fight held its breath. One right hand clipped Holmes late and sent a ripple through the arena. For a split second, the possibility of disaster returned. But Holmes recovered instantly, stepping away, reasserting distance, reminding everyone why he had ruled the heavyweight division for so long. This was never about age, it was about control. Butterbean needed chaos, Holmes needed order, and every second the fight stayed ordered was a second Holmes stole from danger. By the final rounds, Butterbean wasn't hunting anymore, he was hopping. Hopping for one opening. Hopping Holmes would finally slow. Hopping time would betray the legend. It never did. When the final bell rang, there was no knockout, no dramatic collapse, no highlight reel finish, and that was the point. Larry Holmes had done something far more difficult than knocking Butterbean out. He had neutralized him. He turned one of boxing's most dangerous punchers into a frustrated pursuer, forced to swing at shadows and air. The decision went to Holmes, and while some dismissed the fight as a novelty, those who understood boxing saw something deeper. This was a lesson, a reminder. Or is terrifying, but intelligence endures. Butterbean walked away with his reputation intact, still dangerous, still explosive, but exposed. Holmes walked away with something more valuable than a win. He walked away having proven that boxing, at its highest level, is not about violence, it's about control of violence. At 52 years old, Holmes didn't rely on youth, speed, or strength. He relied on understanding distance, understanding timing, understanding risk. And most importantly, understanding his opponent. This fight wasn't about who hit harder, it was about who knew when not to be hit. And in that realm, Larry Holmes was still untouchable. This wasn't a mismatch, it was a masterclass, a reminder that in boxing, chaos only wins when intelligence allows it to.